Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. What started as all things related to brain health and wellness has morphed into largely brain injury health and wellness, with occasional other neurological topics. My mission remains the same, to help you on the path to a healthier brain. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is Dr. Saara Haapanen. Dr. Saara is a performance psychologist, keynote speaker, executive performance coach, and founder of Performance is Happening, with a PhD in sport and exercise psychology, a background as an international level athlete, and more than 26 years of coaching experience. She helps high-achieving humans help improve motivation, energy, focus, and follow through without burning themselves out. Her work blends performance science, wellness, motivation, ADHD-informed strategies, and real-life behavior change. She has worked with executives, physicians, entrepreneurs, educators, athletes, and organizations across the U.S., Canada, and Finland, including Denver Public Schools, Jefferson County Public Schools. I'll put the whole list online. And Dr. Saara served 2 terms on the Colorado Governor's Council for Active and Healthy Lifestyles and has been featured in Forbes Health, Shape, Women's Day, Reader's Digest, and other national media. Her mission is to help people work with their brains and bodies, not against them, so life and work feel less chaotic and more energizing. I think we could all use a little bit of that. So thank you for being here, Dr. Saara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So my first question to people is always, what got you to what you're doing now? Kind of what's your background? Share as much or as little as you want to let us know kind of how you got to doing what you're doing now.
Well, how much time do you have? So I always joke that my only plan in life was to go to the Olympics. And so I'll jump around, but I found out I was ranked 30th in the world in 2008, and they were supposed to take 34 women, and 12 days before the opening ceremony, I found out they were taking 29. So I was the first person not to go. So that was basically the only goal I had in my life. And since then, I refer to these with my clients and the humans that I work with as timeline shifts, splits. So every decision you make kind of determines where you're going to end up. But for me, that was the one and only thing that I had planned, and it didn't really work. My background a little bit, I grew up in Canada. Delivered newspapers, really wanted a trampoline. Diving was cheaper than trampolining, so I got into diving. And I totally fell in love and got myself a full scholarship to go to the United States. And then there, I wasn't quite sure, like any incoming freshman, what I really wanted to do. I was in athletic training for a little bit and then realized, because I was there for a scholarship, you can't spend the hours you need to in the athletic training room. So then I switched to kinesiology and health promotion and was exposed to a psychology class. And I'm obsessed with animals and thought I was going to be a veterinarian until I had this amazing opportunity in high school where I got to actually work at a veterinarian's office and see what comes in the back end, spays and neuters. And we were actually the veterinarian's office that put the animals down for the Humane Society. So I was like, thank goodness gracious, the universe lined up and I got to have that experience, because I now know veterinarians and dentists have some of the highest suicide rates in the world. And I think this is part of it. And also, communicate with animals, with language. And usually it's I'm totally going down a rabbit hole. I will go down lots of rabbit holes because #I have ADHD. But okay, so back to college, one of my first psychology classes, I think it was learning and behavior or human behavior or something like that. And the professor goes, does anyone here have a puppy? And of course, it's college, so a fair amount of people have a puppy. And it was one of those 300 style lecture classes. And so she's like, bring your puppy next time we have class. So someone brings a puppy and she's using positive reinforcement training. And this puppy can learn everything. She's using a clicker training, but you can use anything. You can use a word. And basically, long story short, by the end of this session, this dog can do every single trick, like roll over, sit down, leave it, all these things. And she's like, you train humans the same way. And then I fell into psychology. I fell in love with psychology because at that point I was already coaching humans and I was like, this is going to give me an advantage for both myself because I was an athlete and for the people I help. And then my last year of college, I actually discovered sports psychology, and I took a graduate level class, and then there was no looking back. So then after college, I moved to Finland to train for the Olympics. I at that point had dual citizenship, so now I have 3. So I moved. I was doing my master's degree there. The universe totally aligned. It was the first year they were doing an international program in sports and exercise psychology. So it just worked out perfectly. And then I found out I wasn't going to the Olympics. And then we moved back to the States, and I was just doing research, and I got really depressed because I like helping humans. I don't really like studying them. I don't like data analysis and all this stuff. But during that time of my master's and PhD, you need to pick a subject. And I picked motivation because I was like, well, if I just learn all about motivation, then maybe I'll like history. Still didn't know my brain was ADHD. And an ADHD brain is kind of like a light switch. Like, it gives a lot of shits or 0 shits. There's not really like an in between. So my passion my whole life has been like health and fitness and my sport and helping people. And now when I reflect back, like even the adrenaline seeking from my sport, like flipping and diving into water, my whole life makes sense with ADHD. But what happened is we moved back to the United States, and I got a research grant. So I was just conducting research, and I got really depressed. And that was the first time I saw a therapist, which was in 2013. And I was told that I'm too successful and I'm a female, so I can't have ADHD. So then I was like gaslit for a fair amount, and I started a fitness company and a wellness company and helped a lot of people and worked for a lot of people, and then realized like you can do this on your own. So I went off, and then 7 years went by, and basically my supervisor's like, you can't be a PhD student for 10 years. You need to finish now. So I looked at the research. I had already published research in motivation, optimal human performance, how to create coaching climates of success. And I went to go read my own academic writing, and I didn't understand. So I would read the same paragraph over and over again. I got really worried. I got a brain scan, 2 brain scans, and they said, you don't have blood flow in your frontal lobe during a boring task. And I was like, oh, that's what it feels like. And they said, you have ADHD. You also have depression, which I knew I had, anxiety, which I'm like, I don't have anxiety. But what happened with the anxiety piece is I've been regulating and coping through exercise every day. So it wasn't until I got COVID and I couldn't move my body that I was realizing I had anxiety, like the racing heart, the crazy thoughts all the time, like this, all the symptoms of anxiety that I was just managing myself through exercise. But then I also got diagnosed with TBI in all lobes of my brain. And reflecting back now, I now know that's because I've had 10 plus concussions, some because of my sport, some because of my ADHD, impulsivity, hyperactivity, exploration for dopamine. But yeah, so then since I've been diagnosed with ADHD, I've kind of hyper-focused on that. And now I help both individuals and organizations learn to work with your brain and not against it. So life doesn't have to feel so hard. And I do all sorts of individual and organizational coaching. So that's where I'm at now. There's lots of things I skipped out. I had a sunglass company, I had a digital media agency. Like once people hear about me, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, you are ADHD.
Yeah.
But when I was in it, I didn't know until I got my official diagnosis. Like I've had all these accidental businesses that I just help one person. And because I have the strong belief that I can learn absolutely anything. And that may or may not be a superpower. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes you don't need to learn about absolutely everything. But if I'm hyper-focused, it's great for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple questions come to mind on that one. So with the diagnosis of the TBI, I'm curious, was it a SPECT scan that you had done?
Yeah.
What
So
scan was it?
during my SPECT scan, I had a bunch of scans. The first one was a SPECT scan. And then through that SPECT scan, which looks at blood flow and whatnot, they also found an area of my brain with a lot of blood flow surrounded by no blood flow in the middle. So then I had some MRIs because they were worried I had a brain tumor, but everything's okie dokie. And then I was diagnosed again with ADHD by a psychiatric nurse practitioner when you do like the traditional ADHD test, so I could do meds because they are only a tool in the toolbox, but realizing that there's a tool out there I wanted to try.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. So at any point in there when you had all these multiple concussions, did you feel the impacts of it, or did you Did you know that you had it at the time, or was it something that came on later?
I remember concussions as a kid and going to the hospital, and then my mom having to wake me up and ask me 3 things. And I still remember it was orange, fork, and there was one third thing that I couldn't remember, but every few hours she was waking me up. I was in the hospital a fair amount because of my silly little injuries. And they were all, one, I was rolling around on my bed with my teddy bear and I smoked my head on the corner of a desk and had to get stitches for many of when I was 2, I built a bridge out of books and then tried to cross it, knocked my teeth out. For a lot of I'm going home this summer and I haven't been home in a while. I'm going to grab my school pictures because for a lot of school pictures, I would have a black eye. But the only concussion that I kind of really sticks in my mind was I was in college, and now I'm one of the reasons they actually do pre-concussion for NCAAs for diving, because they said this isn't a high, when you think about it, it shouldn't be a high concussion sport. But the thing about my sport is, and the thing about me, once you have a concussion, as you know, you're more likely to have concussions. So when I was flipping, even when you're supposed to go straight in the water, depending if you're going forwards or backwards, the impact on the water a little bit long and you get hit under your chin, I would get a concussion. If I went a little bit long and hit my head here, I would get a concussion. But the one I remember the most is we were off season and it was a Saturday morning practice and we had created a game. It was a ball game and it was a whole bunch of divers playing this ball game and you would jump over mats. But I missed the ball and got hit in the head with the ball straight onto the head, continued on. That evening, as you do in college, we went drinking. And then Sunday rolls around and I still have a horrible headache. And Monday morning we have a 6 a.m. practice and we have to do jumping jacks and I can't jump. Every movement I do, my head is just pounding, pounding, pounding. And I'm 21 at this point. And I'm I've never had a hangover last this long. So I go to athletic training and they start to assess me and they're oh, yeah. And I remember having to sit in front of a computer and do this test every day to see if I could catch up my speed, if things were getting better. But that was the first time I was actually exposed to kind of pre-post concussion stuff and what the protocol was. And prior to that, all my concussions didn't really have any lasting effects that I felt like. But that one was a little more, I could feel the physical implications and I think of more of the brain fog. And it was become very obvious because every day I would have to sit in front of this computer and do this test. I'm oh, well, it's getting better. But still, that brain fog was very much there.
So did it affect your performance moving forward in your sport at that point?
I like to think not, but it's hard to say now.
Yeah.
I
And
think, yeah, no, because yes and no. I don't know what's the TBI and what's the ADHD.
yeah.
And one of the only ways to get ADHD is from a TBI. I see it in my family. I can see it in my genetics. So I assumed I just double whammied it. I get both. So I'm double ADHD. But yeah, brain injury is one of the only ways that you can develop it. You can't get it from scrolling or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. And I was just going to say that a lot of patients will go in, they get a diagnosis of ADHD. And if it's new onset in adulthood, it's really important to figure out what happened prior to this. Did you have symptoms and you didn't recognize them? Are they truly brand new, or what happened right beforehand? Because oftentimes it is an injury that can cause that. If you do have any tendencies toward ADHD, though, prior to, it can absolutely make it worse, kind of double down, like you were saying. With any of those injuries, do you feel like there was a point where you can...
No. I mean, my diagnosis.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting because the more I learned about ADHD, the more I kind of went through a frustrating phase of, I thought all these characteristics were Saara-isms. And I was that's ADHD, that's ADHD, I just thought it was me and I was unique. And all these things were just the way that I did it. But it was my diagnosis was that missing puzzle piece of this explains me almost 100%. And I've combined, so I have inattentive and hyperactive, so I can relate with all the ADHDers, but it's just so funny. Everything is that I thought was very unique to me is a characteristic of ADHD.
I mean, it's still unique to you. So there's that. We're all still unique. So knowing what you know now about the brain and how the brain works and how performance affects your brain and your brain affects performance and all of that, What is that interplay of that lived experience of somebody with concussions and ADHD? What does that do to your understanding of how the brain works and how performance works?
So one part that I didn't mention when I did my introduction is I also do personal training and fitness training. So you train your brain the same way that you train a muscle. And if you're just listening, I'm doing bicep curls right now, showing off my guns. And you train your brain the same way. So when you're learning about it and learning how to heal it and learning whether it's like positive reframing or positive psychology or just trying to get your basically work on neuroplasticity, you can't just do something one time and expect it to stick. Like I can't do one bicep curl and then I'm ripped. It's thousands of hours in the gym. And I like to tell people like training your brain and training your performance, you got to put the reps in. And it's also not one size fits all. Like what's going to help me might be different than what helps you. But I think being really optimistic and sticking to it and being consistent, which that's like super, super challenging for an ADHD brain, especially if it's not fun or novel or urgent, where there's all these things. And I have a model that I can share after that can help you be motivated with an ADHD brain. But I think it's important for performance to know like this takes time. And this takes effort and there's no magic wand. Like I have Adderall right here, but that doesn't fix anything. It helps processes be easier and like sitting and focusing. But I think a big part of performance training and brain training is it's like if you're an athlete, you can't just be like, oh, I'm a swimmer. And then all of a sudden you can get in the pool and beat the swimmers who've been putting in the hours of work and the effort and all that. So you train your brain like you train your body, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not.
So at one point in there, you were told that you were a high performer and you were a woman and you couldn't have ADHD. What does that give for misunderstanding about the whole situation?
I think for the person who's receiving those words, that then they think they're broken or like, and I hate this word, like crazy, or it's all in your head, even if it is like your brain, everything is all in your head. Like everything starts in your brain, I think. And I'm not the only person who's had this story. I hear it from so many clients and other people that I'm close to, and people have gone through this, and it depends on your practitioner. And the thing that's challenging is a lot now they are finally doing science on women. And by the time this science that comes out that they're doing right now is taught in medical school, where it's at right now is 20 years behind. So the good practitioners are the ones that are continuing their own education, whether on their own or wherever they're working, that they're required to do it. But I think also some older practitioners or males or they're kind of stuck in their ways. Mm-hmm. And the way that the ADHD even shows up in the DSM is not really how it shows up in females. So for a lot of females, when you think of ADHD, you think of the 6-year-old boy who can't sit still in the classroom, and it's very obvious, and they're like, that kid has ADHD. For women, not for all women, because I have both, but it tends to be inattentive. So it's that they might look like a daydreamer, or they might look like they're not paying attention, but they still have that hyperactivity, but it's just internal. So I call it like internal chaos in their head. And the way that society expects females to show up, they tend to be better at masking. So masking is basically like changing yourself so that you are a version that society expects of you. Along with ADHD, there's all these things like rejection sensitivity dysphoria or demand avoidance, all these other comorbidities that tend to be higher. But a big part, and I know this is for me, like rejection sensitivity and being yelled at was a huge part of my trauma experience and part of probably why I was never diagnosed. Like my people pleasing was so much higher and also my competitiveness, and like I wanted to be the best at school. I wanted to be the best at athletics. That competitive spirit kind of probably masked my ADHD for everybody. Like now I understand enough about it and I really want to talk about it all the time because there's still a stigma, and I'm like, look how awesome ADHD can be. Like some of the doctors I train have ADHD, like the pro athletes. It can be such a superpower as long as if you know how to work with it. So there are certain things that we are phenomenal at, and there are certain things that we are not so phenomenal at. But it's okay. You just spend more time, of course, building the skills that you need to be able to function in your role, your lifestyle, your society, whatever it is, but also really dig into the things that you're good at, like creativity, your intuition, your ability to read people. Like there's so many really great things about ADHD, but I think education is huge. I think finally they're doing studies on females, which also super important. Like, I mean, they didn't even use menstrual blood when they were testing pads until like 2020. Like, come on, people.
That's disturbing. We are so far behind on research on females. It's not even funny.
Thing right now with I'm so thankful that they're doing menopause research, because ADHD becomes a real big issue in perimenopause and menopause because it's very much dopamine and estrogen are linked together. But the fact that now they're finally doing studies on females to figure out how females work, because prior they're like, we can't study any females because their cycles are different every day. And it's like, yes, that's why you have to do studies on females, because their cycles are different every day. I mean, our hormones are different. Of course, our cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you add brain injury into that, and brain injury and ADHD and perimenopause. None of that is a good combination whatsoever. That's a whole nother rabbit hole that we could get down, I'm sure. Kind of still thinking about that performance though, with the ADHD and with brain injuries. How do we, from your background in psychology now, so thinking about that aspect of it, looking at performance, discipline, follow through, how do we help those individuals that have ADHD or TBI or somebody that their brain works a little bit differently than our neurotypical?
Yeah. So there's two ways I'll go. First, I'll go to my fun.com model, which shows you how to motivate a ADHDer. So with traumatic brain injury, with ADHD, with having the brain type, potentially perimenopause and all those things, one of the hardest tasks is going from a high dopamine activity to a low dopamine activity, or any activity to a low dopamine activity. So the task transition is the very challenging part for people with my type of brain, mainly. And it could be a task that will take like 5 minutes, but you've been putting it off for 3 months. So if you have a task like that, fun.com. And I tried to buy fun.com, but it was thousands of dollars, so I could not do that. But I'll tell you what it stands for. It was we previously called it the Funk MS model, but fun.com is easier to remember. So you want to look for something fun in the task. So interest and enjoyment, and pulling from the concept of the self-determination theory. So if you're going to have more interest and enjoyment, you're going to have higher levels of intrinsic motivation. And for someone who finds things very boring, maybe it's a repetitive task, how can you make that more fun, interesting, or enjoyable? That's what the F stands for. The U is for urgency. So a lot of people with my brain type will procrastinate. And the reason we do that is, number one, we're not excited, or number two, we need a certain level of anxiety and external kind of like accountability, or someone having a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more accountability, so urgency. So with an ADHD brain, sometimes knowing that you won't take action until, depending what the task is, like the day before or the moment before. So Mandy sent me a Google Doc and then texted me like 5 minutes before we were starting. And she's like, we need to do the Google Doc. And I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot. So for me, I got it done in like 2 seconds because I had the urgency and the external pressure from somebody else to get it done. But if I had like 5 days, Johnson's law says that like I'll take 5 days to fill out that form. So F is for fun, U is for urgency. N is novel. So any newness or novelty, especially if you have to do the same task over and over again. So can you change your environment? Can you make it into, can you have someone else with you? So body doubling is a great tool. Just having someone in your space with you if you have ADHD to start that task initiation. Okay, fun.com. C is for competition or challenge. ADHDers love this, and it could be with yourself or with another person. So let's say it's a task that's timed. You're like, last time I got this done in 5 minutes. Can I get it done in 4 minutes? Or of course, if you want to compete with somebody else, you can do it with somebody else, but also know that competition can be with yourself as well, because we don't always have other people. O stands for others. So that's also from the self-determination theory. The more related you are to its relatedness in the official theory, but the more you're surrounded by other people who are doing things similar to you, like they say, the 5 people you surround yourself the most, you're going to start to think like them, act like them, do like them, but also just from that body doubling perspective. So like for me, I'll go to a coffee shop and pretend everyone is looking at my computer and they're making sure that my website gets done or whatever it is. And I know that's not the case, but that external pressure for me is really helpful, that I can then get enough anxiety to kind of take action and do the thing. And then is movement. And yes, I'm a fitness trainer, but I don't necessarily mean movement into the gym, which is great, but we need enough movement to create stimulation so that your brain can focus. So on my ring here, I have a twirly thing. I finished my PhD with a vibration platform that's now in my gym, but it was under my desk. So I would just sit here and my legs would jiggle so that it would be enough that my brain could like just focus on something. In my backyard, I have a hammock chair, a swingy chair. Actually, I have 2 hammock chairs, a regular hammock. Like just being in motion, if you have a brain like mine, is enough that's enough stimulation that you can like chill and get the task done. So if motivation is lacking and performance, and especially starting that task initiation, I would look at fun.com and see what's missing. And usually it's a few of those, if not all of them, if that task is really challenging to do.
Mm-hmm. So I love that. That's a really kind of cute little acronym way to remember those things. When I went through nursing school, they had acronyms for everything, and it was always super helpful to remember different, like the cranial nerves, for example. So learning different nerves, those acronyms are really super helpful. So I like that way of thinking about it. How do kind of those high achievers fall through the cracks, do you think, or why do you think we've missed out on some of that high achievingness in getting diagnosed?
I think masking is a huge part of it. And as a high performer, you always want to do your best, right? And you're going to hide. It's very unnatural to tell other humans what you suck at. And there's also this idea from the neurodivergent, more autism, but I know a lot of ADHDers experience it. It's that the perception of being perceived, and you want to be perceived in a certain way. And I think a lot of high achievers with ADHD. So there's a stat that says by the age of 12, an ADHDer has received up to 30,000 more negative inputs from people in power, from teachers, from just people around them. Like, sit still, don't do that, do this, so, especially if you already have rejection sensitivity or there's all sorts of things, but you and that people pleasing comes up, you protect yourself. So you don't want to show people your weaknesses, and you'll make up for it. And I see this over and over and over and over again, that people can hold it together at work and they can be a high performer and they're absolutely killing it and they have all these systems that work for them. And then they get home and they just disassociate, shut down, and are like stuck on the couch and there's a place in between that I want humans to have, like being able to perform optimally at work and doing your job great, but also when you come home, how do you take care of yourself and prioritize your own self-care? Because first, if you aren't taking care of yourself, no one else is going to do that for you, but also you are going to burn out. And neurodivergent burnout is a whole other can of worms than regular burnout, and it takes much longer. 3 months is like the average of a neurodivergent burnout compared to regular burnout. I'm not trying to talk down on anybody's burnout. Burnout of any kind is horrible, but kind of what I would love for people to do is be able to design their life and to take steps so that you kind of get both worlds. what's working for you at work, and then how do you still be a human when you're done work? You're not giving 100% of your whole being through masking and people pleasing and doing all the avoidant behaviors because you're scared of you have RSD or whatever it is. Finding that, and I hate balance because really there's no such thing as work-life balance, but finding kind of like what's the recipe for you and your life where you can take care of yourself and also perform well at work.
Yeah, yeah. I like that idea. We talk about that work-life balance all the time, but it doesn't really exist. Like I don't think I've ever seen anybody successfully find that balance. Something always throws it off a little bit. So you mentioned the fun.com. What other practical strategies would you have then for people to try to retrain their brains, to find more of that fit in life and that successful forward motion?
I think the first step is to acknowledge how you're talking to yourself because we hear everything we say, whether it's good or bad. And often, especially females, are talking to themselves in a way that they would not talk to anybody else. They would not talk that way to their significant other or to their best friend. So my first step is to kind of start paying attention to how you're talking to yourself. And then treat yourself like your own best friend, but also catching your thoughts. So a huge part, like thought stoppage technique, is really great for any human, regardless of brain type. The fastest way is to get your body involved. So whether you have like an elastic band, you can like hit the elastic band, you can slap yourself, pinch yourself. But what you're going to do is tell yourself no in your head or out loud. When you catch yourself having one of those yucky thoughts, first step is to like tell yourself no and pinch, hit, abuse yourself a little bit. You have your own consent to do that. So, or hopefully after listening to this, and then you're going to reframe that thought. And even just paying attention to all the thoughts that you have. Are they serving my brain health? Are they serving me and my goals? Are they serving the human that I want to be for my future self? But I think catching how you are thinking and what you are saying about yourself is the first step to then start training your brain. But then bringing in that body component of being like, no, stop. But I think that treating yourself like your own best friend is something that kind of sticks and feels easy and not scary and totally doable. But start paying attention to how you talk to yourself and what kind of thoughts you're having.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually had a conversation with a patient the other day about being their own best friend because we were talking about how they were getting down that negative self-talk loop. And I don't know where I heard it initially, but it's the question of what would you say to your best friend? Would you talk to your best friend like that? And if you would not, then don't talk to yourself like that. So she actually wrote down in the appointment, be my own best friend. She's like, okay, thank you. I needed that. Because we do need the reminders. Sometimes we forget that we are our own worst critics and we are much kinder to other people when they're struggling than we are to ourselves ever.
Yeah. And I mean, our brains are super smart, and they're going to automate everything. So Dr. Amen refers to it as the ants. So kill the automatic negative thoughts. But if you're having the same thoughts all the time, like when you look in the mirror and you are saying something not kind to yourself, and that happens every day, your brain's going to be like, okay, she wants this to be automated. So it's going to copy and paste. And then you're almost creating that pattern. Our brains are so great, but we also think we're full of novel thinking, and a lot of it is just cut and paste from yesterday, like everything that's been automated. So really catching yourself is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Catching it and turning it into something different. You can change the narrative at any point. So that's super important. What do you wish that people, like one thing that you wish people knew about either ADHD or TBI brains or?
You're not lazy. You're not broken. If you were lazy, you wouldn't feel bad about not doing the task. Like you would just be lazy, scrolling there on the internet, being like, this is amazing. But that feeling of that heavy weight on your shoulders, you're not lazy and you're not broken. The way that I like to explain it is you're an android, and when you were born, someone gave you the Apple manual, and now it's not fitting. So all you kind of need is to figure out you need the Android manual, and then all of a sudden, everything will start to kind of make sense. And it is baby steps and one tiny step at a time. But Also, there are so many ways to train your brain and bodies in a way that doesn't have to feel so hard the way that it feels right now. And I think the more you can learn about it, the better. And I'm always asked if a diagnosis is required. So whether you have a brain injury, whether your scattered brain is from a brain injury, or a lot of the lifestyle modifications and treatments is going to be the same. For me, when I tell my humans, I truly believe the only time you really need an official diagnosis is if you want to try medication. And there is no magic pill. I've tried 7 different medications. There's no medication on the planet that does not have a side effect. And how a med works for me might be different for you, but it is a tool. So I have 13 mountains and medication is just one of them. But there are, regardless with an official diagnosis or not, you're going to still train your brain and body in the same way. So if you want a diagnosis, get a diagnosis. But at the end of the day, if you don't want meds, it doesn't matter. It's still going to be the same. Eat good, move your body, put positive things in there. There's a whole bunch of other things as well, but those are like the top 3.
Yeah, I love that. Do you, it's time to tout yourself a little bit. Do you have any projects or any things you want to share with our listeners?
I have a unstuck video and a habit checklist that I've shared with Mandy. So if you are interested, and the video is for those people who feel like they don't know what they like. They don't know. We as ADHDers and people with brain injuries and stuff often, especially as females, have spent our whole life taking care of others, right? Or just managing. And then something happens and they're like, what do I do? What do I even like? I don't even know what I like because you're not thriving. You're surviving. So there's a little video in there that will help you kind of figure out what you like to do. Spoiler alert, you have to spend some time with your brain being quiet. And then there's also a checklist that can help you get, the fun.com model is in there, but help you get started on those stupid, annoying, hard tasks that we've been putting off for months.
Nice. And where can people find you if they want to learn more?
drsaara.com. And I'm the only Saara Haapanen on the internet who does what I do. There might be like 1 or 2 in Finland, but they won't be in English. And if you just search my name, you'll find my stuff.
And I will include all the links and everything in the show notes so people can find it easily. They don't have to do a lot of Googling. Just click the show notes. I will have those there. I so appreciate your time today, Dr. Saara. Are there any last words that you wanted to share that we haven't had a chance to touch on yet before we wrap up?
Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Yeah. And thank you. That was so much fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you so much for being here today. Have a great rest of your day. I super appreciate it.
Me too.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it so that others can benefit. Please also consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. You can also go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to catch the latest info and get links on all of the social medias there. See you next time.